What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton just activated a part of the SF-25 that not even Ferrari knew existed? In the midst of the chaos that has been this 2025 season, the Briton has deciphered a technical advantage that could completely change the competitive order in Formula One. And it all happened at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. What did Hamilton find? And why could this be a before and after in the fight for the championship? The Mexican Grand Prix has always been a technical and physical test that separates the meticulous drivers from the impulsive ones, those who understand the car as an extension of their body, from those who simply drive it. On this occasion, the challenge was no less. The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, located more than 2,200 meters above sea level, is not just an exotic setting. It is a stress laboratory for everything that makes up a Formula One car. The reduction in air density in these conditions affects absolutely everything. From the efficiency of the rear wing to the cooling capacity of the hybrid system, through the performance of the brakes, the turbo and the downforce generated by the flat bottom. Each aerodynamic element of the car was designed to operate with a certain volume of air passing through it. Since there is 25% to 30% less density, the flows do not behave as they should, and that changes the balance of the car in each corner, braking or acceleration. While many teams dealt with these effects reactively, endlessly adjusting engine maps and suspension settings to find some balance, Hamilton seemed to operate from another perspective. This was not a sudden enlightenment or an undeclared mechanical advantage. It was something deeper. During the first laps of free practice, the British pilot began to notice nuances in the behavior of the SF-25 that others simply did not notice. Small fluctuations in aerodynamic pressure when cornering, subtle vibrations in the steering that indicated pressure losses. He interpreted all of this as if it were a coded language, and that is where the breaking point occurs. Hamilton did not force the car to adapt to his style. He did the opposite. He adjusted his driving to what the car needed to function harmoniously under these extreme conditions. Instead of aggressive braking, he executed progressive decelerations. Instead of sharp turns, he looked for smooth lines that respected airflow. And instead of attacking the corners decisively as he would at Silverstone or Monza, he danced them with surgical precision. That refined style activated, without anyone having foreseen it, an unexpected synergy between the front suspension and the aerodynamics of the SF-25's flat bottom. The telemetry showed how the car remained in a zone of dynamic balance that no simulation had anticipated. In other words, Hamilton had found a perfect resonance between aerodynamic and mechanical forces and his driving. This type of connection between car and driver is not taught. It is the result of more than 2 decades of experience, mistakes, and sharp intuition. Formula One has seen many great engineers and fast drivers, but very few can read a car like a musician reads a complex score in real time. The result was that, while his rivals struggled with understeer, oversteer, or out-of-range tire temperatures, Hamilton turned consistent, clean laps, with minimal degradation and a pace that could only be explained by understanding this technical synergy invisible to the rest. But this was not just a technical victory. It was a silent but powerful message. A warning that Hamilton is not only understanding the Ferrari, but is beginning to master it in the most extreme conditions possible. And that, at this point in the season, can completely redefine the course of the championship. What happened after the first day of practice at the Mexican GP left the Maranello technical team speechless. Telemetry from the SF-25 piloted by Lewis Hamilton showed numbers that not only exceeded expectations, but directly challenged the team's internal simulations. It was as if the car behaved like a completely different car under the hands of the 7-time world champion. Ferrari engineers, accustomed to analyzing hundreds of parameters per session, began to notice an unexpected correlation. High-speed corners, traditionally a weak point of the SF-25 due to its aerodynamic design focused on efficiency rather than maximum load, showed surprisingly high performance when Hamilton was the one to draw them. But there were no visible changes in the setup. The spoilers had not been adjusted, the height of the car nor the power maps had been modified. What was happening? What Hamilton had achieved was to generate unprecedented aerodynamic stability simply through his driving style. Its curve entry was so measured, so precise, that the airflow over the flat bottom and the diffuser remained constant even in the weight transfer phases. This consistency allowed the car to operate longer within what is known as its optimal aerodynamic window. This, in technical terms, means that the surfaces of the car, especially the lower ones, were operating under ideal conditions of airflow pressure and speed, without abrupt interruptions or loss of lift. But that's not all. The most amazing thing was discovering that this aerodynamic stability was closely linked to how Hamilton used the brake. Through extremely fine modulation, the Briton achieved an ideal longitudinal load balance that kept the bottom of the car in a stable position against the asphalt. In other words, its braking not only helped reduce speed, but also allowed the SF-25 to remain aerodynamically efficient in phases in which pressure loss normally occurs. And here comes the dramatic twist. This technical advantage had not been identified in the simulation benches or in the previous tests. No driver, not even Leclerc, had activated this synergy until now. Because it was a combination of driving technique, dynamic understanding, and sensitivity to the limit that few on the grid possess. The car, in essence, required an interpretive reading, not just a technical one, to reveal its true potential. And that's exactly what Hamilton had done. With this data in hand, Ferrari was forced to completely rethink its tuning approach. The suspension maps were adjusted to allow greater responsiveness to micro-variations in the terrain. The weight distribution was optimized based on the dynamic behavior observed under Hamilton's driving. Even the engineers recalibrated the downforce objectives for the next races, not based on the average of simulations but exclusively on the Briton's data. This event has marked a break in the way Ferrari understands its own car. The SF-25 was designed to be precise, but it was not known to hide a high-fidelity mode of operation that required surgical accuracy in every driving parameter. And now that they know, they are racing to adapt the rest of their technical program to that new reality. What seemed like another evolution of the SF-24 suddenly became a car of extremely high interpretative complexity, and Ferrari has in its hands not only a great car, but a hidden potential that can only be unleashed by a driver with Hamilton's level of perception, control, and experience. It's not that the SF-25 has changed. Hamilton has decoded it. And this discovery completely changes the way Ferrari will compete for the rest of the calendar. Because if they have found a unique and replicable technical path based on Hamilton's style, we could be witnessing the birth of a secret weapon in full development. Lewis Hamilton's discovery is not limited to a simple one-off performance improvement. It has much broader implications not only for Ferrari, but for the entire development of the 2025 season. What began as an intuitive reading of the SF-25 has now transformed into a true internal revolution. And that changes everything. First, you have to understand the magnitude of the moment. Ferrari was not leading the championship. It had shown flashes, yes, but with worrying inconsistencies in a car that, although competitive, did not seem to have what it took to regularly beat McLaren or Red Bull under normal conditions. However, this discovery, this unexpected technical activation by Hamilton, introduces a new factor. The SF-25 has a latent performance that had not been able to be exploited until now. And most importantly, that potential can be translated into real results. This opens two simultaneous paths. The first is immediate. In the remainder of the championship, Ferrari will be able to adjust its technical and operational philosophy based on Hamilton's driving. It is no longer just about preparing the car according to what the factory simulations dictate, but rather about building real configurations, adapted to the conditions that allow this aerodynamic synergy to be replicated. This means that, race by race, Ferrari could find small advantages on medium and high load circuits that were not available to them before. Ferrari already knows that it will need a chassis that can operate within wider dynamic ranges. And now you have a driver who can not only identify those margins, but also push the team to design around them. And this is the most important thing. The moment we experienced in Mexico was not just a high point on Lewis's learning curve. It was the warning that the alliance between Ferrari and one of the most successful drivers in history is beginning to bear real fruit. And if this connection continues to deepen, the SF-25 could become a fearsome platform for future races. Because when a team like Ferrari manages to align technique, experience, and confidence in a single package, history has taught us that the impossible begins to be feasible. And this 2025 season, which seemed to be defined by McLaren, may still have chapters to write. Are we seeing the birth of a 2.0 version of Hamilton within Ferrari, capable of challenging McLaren and Red Bull from the pure technical understanding of the car? Or do you think this advantage was circumstantial, something that cannot be replicated in more conventional tracks such as Interlagos, Abu Dhabi, or even Las Vegas? Leave it in the comments.